I got a government job with Government of India, Baba Atomic Research Center, research scientist, gazetted officer post. So what probably I did not even dream I got it. I want all of you to understand I got all beyond my dreams only because I never dreamt what I should have. I kept on looking for what next, what next, what next. And then becoming a government officer was something which very timely. My family became strong because even with one government salary, a family of 5, 6 can decently live. This is positive thinking because many think that कितना भी सैलरी आएगा इसमें जिंदगी कैसा चलेगा. I still distinctly remember an year before my marriage, one tradesman who was drawing half salary than what I was drawing asked me a question: when are you getting married? I asked, once I settle in my life, I will get married. This is a routine statement. He said, sir, I already have 3 children. I am very happy. I settled long back. So that made me to think that to settle in life, it is not the quantum of salary, it is the mindset. And came to Mumbai with no expectation, and I got more than what I dreamt. I married a not government, State Bank working wife, did my MSc and PhD in Mumbai University in thyroid biochemistry. And 2 children, and at an age of 37, I took a decision, and that was the boldest decision. And today I am telling story because took decisions. All those who take decisions will have a story to tell. And all were made to take a decision will not be able to tell a story. You need to take a decision in life. You have an option to choose, and if you have chosen right things, and you will have a great journey. So at an age of 37, with son 5 years, daughter 3 years, I left my government job, and I didn't discuss with my wife, which I am sure 99% of the people discuss either with wife or father-in-law. When do you discuss is when you can't manage the outcome. If it goes wrong, you have to discuss with them, otherwise they will disown you. And I was not scared to own my own outcome, and I didn't feel anything. Anybody would not understand what is life as much as I understand, and my life is my understanding. My life is not somebody else's understanding. So I took a decision even without discussing with my wife, and my wife was pretty annoyed, and she threatened that she will also give up the job. In fact, I resigned thinking that she has a job and I don't have an EMI. But then she threatened that she would leave the job, and I told her, you also leave, and we both left the government job and the bank job same day. That's one reason why I call my talk title very often as Romance with Risk. Things went on very well. I had a different business model. I didn't do what neighbor does, and because I did it different, I could make it different. And since all of you know what is balance sheet, I must tell you what has been my success. I have never borrowed personally. Company has not borrowed. All organic. Manpower also is organic. I have never employed an experienced one. All my children, all general managers also have started their first day with me. Today they have completed 20 plus years. In the entire world, India is cheapest in healthcare. In entire India, I am the cheapest. And I serve to the nooks and corners of all migrant towns. Now you guys know where from migrants are coming. So every Bihar district, every Odisha district, every UP district, Jharkhand district, Bengal district, I have been covering. So in spite of charging the least in the world, my balance sheet has got a 38% EBITDA. So my success, if I have to sum up, is take the least from the customer, give the most to the investor, and keep the employees happiest. I think these are the three goals of any CEOs, and I have done it fairly well for not 1 year, 2 year, 25 years, 26th year. And if you look at the balance sheet, there are some uniqueness. Others HR cost runs around 20%. My HR cost runs around 10%. Others run a 20%, 23% EBITDA. I run a 35 or 37 to 38% EBITDA. So in that way, a lot of things make investors to feel Thyrocare is a well managed company, controlled and run with a lot of energy, lot of capabilities. In fact, if I have to summarize, for 25 years, if I leave the first 5 years, then remaining 20 years, if I do a CAGR, it is 25%. Unfortunately, for the last 2-3 years, things have not been as good as what it was. We are doing only around 12, 13, 14%. And that's about the journey of Velumani, journey of Thyrocare. And I am present in 10 countries. And we have a kitchen and a restaurant model. And I will elaborate what it means. I am from Coimbatore, and people from South know, even North know. If they have gone to Coimbatore, there is an eatery called as Annapurna. And even in 1975, that gentleman had a single kitchen and multiple restaurants. So the concept of cloud kitchen originated from Coimbatore. Today we call it as cloud kitchen. So I am from same town, and I was wondering why I can't run a common kitchen for thyroid testing people who run their restaurant. That's the laboratories. So it worked very well, and it's a very unique way of doing. My machines don't stand, they keep running. And if the vehicles keep running, that becomes Ola. If hotels keep occupied, that becomes Oyo. And if laboratories, if they keep running without waiting, that becomes Thyrocare. That's how the entire journey. And those days, these brands were not existing. And I am more powerful than Amazon, because I can come to your home wherever you are in 10 different countries the next morning if you book the test before 10 p.m. in the previous evening. Very wonderful business model. With clinical chemistry, we focused on pure lifestyle disorders. So that is a journey, if I sum up. Now let us come to COVID, which is suddenly a distress for all on this earth. Without countries, all countries where it has impacted put together is 90% of the world population. It's only 125 days old. If someone has read first time about this, we don't know before that how many months China has kept quiet on it. And within shortest period of time, it has gone east, west, north, south, everywhere. I don't think any city is spared. In COVID as an infection, COVID as a pandemic, COVID as a killer. Let me tell you, it all happened only in China, and it's happening in China, and none of us thought it will come out of China so bad. We thought China will have 90% of the problem, only 10% will be in the rest of the world. But then by the end of January and in the month of February, the total scenario changed. Today, I realize China is not even 5%, the remaining world is 95%. This is another learning. And when the initial 1,000 deaths happened in China, I studied the old were dead, young were spared. Percentage of people dying above the age of 65 was far high, and people below 50 was far low. So I gave a analysis on India. India's mean age is 28, young country. So India is less likely to suffer from the age point of view. So that was a confidence for me very early itself. But then it goes right and left, and it goes to every European country, first place, biggest havoc in Italy, then France, Spain, UK, US. Wow. So all the so-called G5, G7 countries all were targeted. And after one more month, it became evident that all of them have reached very early peak, and India has still not reached peak. India will reach peak. If the India reaches peak like how they have reached, India will be too difficult to manage. And that is where the lockdown came in. Lockdown was not a stupid idea. Lockdown was very essential because we didn't have medical infrastructure to handle the number of infected if they become serious. So that is known as flattening of the curve. And lockdown 1.0 was very much essential and perfectly accepted. But during the lockdown period, we have been studying on a daily basis. In fact, if I have to say, in this last 60 days, my brain has done more work than what it has done in last 60 years. So to a large extent, reading what is happening in India, worldwide numbers, and you know how you guys analyze different financial parameters. I analyze different parameters related to infection, to death, to population, to per capita income, to mean age, and a lot of things I could see through, which probably even government agencies or babus who take decision did not see it as clearly I saw it. And let me explain you what I have seen in this last 60 days period. All people are talking about infections. Infections is not an indication. More you test, more infection will be there. Richer you are, you will test more. And all infected don't die. And percentage of people die out of 100 infected also is varying. So what matters to us is death. I think all problem, we call it as pandemic because it creates finally death. So I studied what is the DPM. DPM is death per million. You should not call Sri Lanka and Nepal parallel to India and tell that Sri Lanka has only 29 cases, India has 2000 cases. We can't tell it. So death per million is a very standard unit, as good as calling per capita income as a standard unit. So I studied death per million in the Western world is ranging from 100 to 300. First is 300 and US is around 115 or 20. Deaths per million. Indian death per million is only 3. So what does that mean? That means India has not got it late. India's first case was as old as US first case. So entire journey of 90 days have been through for both countries and all European countries. And India is still having only 3 per million deaths. No, death per million is 3. So that says worldwide this is troubling. India, it is nice. Indians appear to be a different kind of target for the virus. And it is not 1 week, it is now literally speaking 6-7 weeks of statistics is consistent. Many people ask a question, is it a test per million we are doing low? Now let me come to that also. People believe test per million will save us. No. Western world have done almost 20 times more than India in terms of test per million. Yet in India, death per million is low. In Western world, death per million is high. So it's very clear that test per million is knowledge, only for knowledge, only is to reduce the distress, but not to reduce, it cannot reduce the death. The next one is, when I analyze countries above 30,000 US dollar per capita, if I list, and if I list countries below 5,000 per capita, India is only 2,000. The high per capita income countries have high deaths per million, and low per capita income countries have low deaths per million. So it sounds little unique because we always felt they have got a better medical infrastructure, they have got a better power of spending, and India, like country, has very little money, very poor infrastructure, so we will be suffering. But it is very clear that people with money have burnt money, but they couldn't escape. Being India without money did not burn that much money, but India is safer. These are all positivity. Please look at from another edge of the prism. You will see a different scene. And as I said in the beginning itself, China had a problem, and in China old were dying. Then I analyze what about this more than 20,000 per capita income countries versus less than 5,000 per capita income countries. I find the mean age of those high per capita income country is roughly around 45 to 50. In India, it's 28 is the mean age. So what is it doing? The virus is very severe on old people, and India has less old people, so India has less problem. To give you a better picture, above 65 age of above 65, it's around 18% in Western world, and in India, it's only 5-6%. So we are safe. India is safe. Nav Bharat, Tarun Bharat, Young India has been a very positive outcome. And then, I used to coin a word, and this was my own coining this word, a luxury of poverty. And I have been today very happy, successful man, peaceful man, because I had seen the poverty. And India also has seen the poverty because a $2,000 per capita income versus $40,000 per capita income we have been living for the last so many years. And India's infant mortality is very high, whereas Western world have a very cool, very comfortable, very hygienic, wonderful life. But what is the flip side of it? Their children have never seen pathogen. Indian children have seen every kind of pathogen. Pathogen means the one which gives you illness. So in India, every child, especially those who are born in a poor family, especially those who are born in a village, had not had any hygiene and any comfort and any kind of knowledge of what is right, wrong, and we have faced everything very early. For us, COVID is one more pathogen. For them, COVID is the pathogen. So they have been suffering. The next 2 points taken into consideration, though there is no valid proof, is India has been having tuberculosis as a big menace. So we had a BCG vaccination. India had malaria as a burden. We had chloroquine as the treatment. It appears that from the maps of high mortality to low mortality geographies, high mortality geographies did not have BCG scheme, did not have chloroquine impact. In fact, those days, these high per capita income countries used to tell, oh, TB, that's meant for underdeveloped countries. We are all developed, and they never implemented one. And there is a likelihood what helps us today is the program which we adapted for controlling tuberculosis. So all these things together, and then lockdown has supported, lockdown has delayed. Lockdown is not the reason for anything except delaying. Lockdown cannot avoid death. Lockdown can only delay deaths. Lockdown cannot avoid disaster. It can only delay the disaster, and it was done with the lockdown number one. The lockdown too, according to me, was an optional one. Had we not been suffering more, we could have continued. But since we were suffering a lot economically, and a lot of migrant population, lot of industries all closed down, and we had no time before doing lockdown one, we should have taken care of that in lockdown two announcing. But then that also came. Okay, we can prepare our infrastructure, hospitals, doctors, PPEs, ventilators. But then lockdown 3 was a very big surprise and shock, especially when all the numbers are telling, entire world is telling India is fudging numbers. because the numbers are so low, it is unbelievable. यकीन नहीं आता है, लेकिन हमें इसमें भी कुछ नहीं हुआ है. That's one unfortunate part. I don't know whether the government was too determined to do what they wanted, or they wanted to see what is good for the economy also. But having said that, we are also now halfway through the lockdown 3. A lot of chaos are happening. The last 3 days, long queues for alcohol says the need for alcohol for common man as well as for the government. And it all opens new education in the what do you call as GDP come deficit come entire what do you call as Reserve Bank of India's policies of deciding when to print money and when to not to do that. So that is about COVID. If I have to sum up my whole communication of COVID, no one can escape. Today morning only, I saw in Times of India, it's telling, ICMR is telling, you have no choice, you have to live with it. After 60 days, I told almost some 35 days back, we have to live with it. But today they tell now you have to live with it. We could have lived with it much earlier. So we have to live with it. Nobody can escape from it. Unfortunate with this COVID testing, all symptomatic need not be positive and all positive need not be symptomatic. Kya kamal hai, test bhi waisa hi hai. So what is happening? Happening is if somebody gets it, and let me explain you for your knowledge, only 10 out of 100 who got exposed know that they got exposed. Remaining 90 do not know they have got exposed because they got a very powerful immune system which took care of the problem which they had come across. So 90%. In that 10%, again 90% do not have symptoms that needs a hospitalization. They got some kind of a mild symptoms. अपने आप 4-5 दिन में या 10 दिन के अंदर it became normal. So only the remaining gets into hospital, and in hospital, all those who go to the hospital don't die. Around 95% of the people come back. So 5% of admitted only die. So if you have to look at positively, 99.95% of the people worldwide are still living. Even in America, 99.95% is living. So I don't think one need to truly sit and in a cage as if we get out, the lion will eat. You have to befriend the lion, and lion becomes friendly with all those who have good immunity, moderate immunity, even low immunity. And only no immunity cases are wiped out. And that's too little a percentage. And it is not worth for the country to continue to be in lockdown for long months. It will cripple completely the future of next generations, couple of generations. So बच नहीं पाएगा, सामना करना ही होगा. And to give a clarity to all of you, I am sitting in one room, and my children told don't come out of the room. And I called them in and I asked them, look, let us say I managed for 5 years sitting in this room and I escape from this virus. After 5 years, if I go out one day, if I catch it, whether I am more competent today to face the virus, or after 5 years, 10 years, I will be competent. The both of them are biotechnology postgraduates. So they said, Dad, it is good to get exposed now. I want all of you to understand, earlier is better, because when you become later in exposure, you become older to meet the enemy. Be younger when you meet the enemy. Having said that, I have not got COVID testing done. My family members have not. I have an extended family, my side and my wife's side, almost 2 dozen number of people above the age of 30. But I have not got done any of them done. Trust me, all of us are safe enough to live comfortably, except a very few, very few, as I said, 0.05% of the old, unfortunate, poor Indian population. So that is about COVID, and that is about my journey. I think I will be very keen to take questions and answer rather than being it a monologue. I am also good at monologue. I can keep talking for a couple of hours. I started it when I got children. My children were sleeping and I became master of telling stories. So now back to you to put me questions that I can elaborate, and it's open now.
Thank you, Dr. Velumani. It was a very inspiring address. And I think we have had many panelists in the last 45 days since we all started working from home, and over 5,000 clients and have attended that. But I think this was a very unique one. I think most of the time we have spoken about markets and economy and stock markets. So I think it was very refreshing, and with your experience, both as an entrepreneur and as a medical, as a person in that field. So we have over 230 participants. So
Okay.
there are a few questions, sir. One, I think you partly answered, but I'll still ask is that I think a gentleman is asking that in spite of a fairly stringent lockdown, I think India had one of the most stringent lockdowns in the, probably if you compare with other countries globally, we still see some cases rising. What could be the reason for that?
See, one thing is the lockdown helped in delaying it.
Okay.
Lockdown is not the treatment. Lockdown is not the solution. Instead of appearing this year for the 12th standard exam, you are appearing next year so that you are better prepared. The examination is not going to become milder. So here one more challenge is, I think I must answer to you honestly. If you look at it, metro cities are having more problem than smaller towns. Motamoti.
Okay.
And this problem of metro cities is because in villages, each man has 100 square feet for him to live, which means there is a social distancing possible if he wishes to practice. In Mumbai, in some 200 square feet rooms, there are a dozen. A man doesn't have even 15 square feet for his privacy or for his own space. So did Mumbai experience social distancing? The answer is no. Did Mumbai have a lockdown? The answer is yes. I think I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. I think definitely. I think it's just delayed. The lockdown has delayed so that we are better prepared. I think that's, so they call it the flattening of the curve. I think that's
Yes.
what we have done. I think a couple of other questions on related to the COVID. So I'll finish the COVID part first, and then we'll go to your journey as an entrepreneur. There are certain questions on that as well. So it says, what are your recommendations to build immunity, or is there something which we can do to maybe avoid? There are 2-3 questions, or reduce the risk. Is there something we can do?
So all immunity, the entire investment community knew was what immunity Vijay Mallaya got by going to London. Now there is a new meaning of immunity, which I was not knowing that it will become so popular in last 100 days. I was fortunate that I had dealt with immunity when I joined in BRC. My core business is on immunity-based technologies, so I have a little in-depth knowledge about immunity. Let me tell you honestly, immunity is built in the first 5 years of life, not subsequently. As much as brain also is 90% formed in the first 5 years of life, immunity also is formed in the first 5 years. Why immunity goes wrong, I will tell you, because there are plenty of people who are listening to me must be wondering, more than their immunity, what to do for their children immunity. Because we all are worried about, not us, we have lived a fairly good portion of life. So I must tell you here, my mother never visited any hospital, nor my mother ever took us to any hospital. And first 50 years, I've never got admitted in any hospital. In other words, जब भी 4 बच्चे थे, सभी लोग 5 साल की 6 साल की कम उम्र के थे. रोज रोज किसी किसी बच्चे को फीवर आता था, लॉट ऑफ यूरिनरी ट्रैक्ट इन्फेक्शन, जो भी आता है आ जाता है. गांव में ज्यादा आता है, लेकिन वो अपने आप जानी चाहिए, पैसा नहीं है खर्च करने के लिए. So if you were poor and if your parents were fairly thinking human body should solve human body problem, why to rush to your doctor? You have preserved immunity, your body fought for its survival, and body is more powerful. Now today I am in Mumbai and I'm seeing a lot of young mothers. Majority of them monitor temperature every 15 minutes. In 4th hour, if the temperature has not gone down, they will not even give a paracetamol, they will go to the doctor. Because if they give paracetamol and then go to the doctor, doctor will tell there is no problem. So they go and then doctor will tell, okay, आज ही fever हुआ है, 2 दिन ठहरो. They won't wait. नहीं डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा एक ही बेटा है, I don't want to risk. जो भी इंजेक्शन देना है दे दीजिएगा, ताकि डॉक्टर ने एक दबाकर एक एंटीबायोटिक दिया तो आप में बहुत खुश हो गया क्योंकि क्यूर हो गया. So this was a pampered immunity. The other one was a parented immunity. So if you ask me, once you have become an adult, there is a very rare improvement in immunity. Of course, I do believe a good nutrition, good fitness, good wellness, these 3 are very important. These 3 together, I think, is offered in yoga. I see as yoga as one of the greatest. I think people who visit yoga will be now much more. All people in the lockdown did not have any other gym option also. So I think yoga is one thing which will help you to have it slightly improved. If it is not there, you can't improve it. And I must tell you, नसीब अपना अपना, जिसका पास है. If you have higher immunity, please go and touch the parents' feet, because they only gave you. You didn't get it from anywhere else.
It's thank you. So there are a couple of questions on vaccine. I think most of the countries are working towards that. What is your sense on that? What kind of timelines do you see some visibility there on the vaccine?
Before explaining on vaccine, I'll tell you my anger on WHO. They first told it is not human to human transmission in China. Then they had to make an amendment for their statement. Had they told the entire world wear a mask first, entire world should wear mask. Had they told it, this would have not become this bad. The second failure was not announcing that it is a problem which can be masked. The third thing is, recently they have said, these men who have first infection, we can't be sure that he will not get a second infection. That's an atrocious statement. What is the meaning of vaccination? Vaccination itself says an attenuated virus or bacteria, which is not biologically virulent, you inject little bit so that the body gets tamed to it. In other words, it gets an immunity towards it, so that tomorrow when sachi dushman andar gusa, so you will be able to defend it. This is purely an immunology. Now, if WHO says that it is not guaranteed, I'm wondering why trillions of rupees are spent on creating vaccines. Now, that is to tell that afwaye, galat things, lot are happening in the COVID era. Coming to answer you, vaccine will come. Vaccine has to come, not 1 or 2 vaccine. There must be dozens of vaccine. Which works best, it will take some more time to understand. But it is going to come. And it might take minimum 1 year, because vaccines cannot be rolled out on the claim that it is a vaccine. It has to pass through trials in different countries, in different backgrounds and different experimental conditions. Then only it can can come, but there is a likelihood the one with the virus will be the richest entrepreneur. And Motilal Oswal should find out who are such guys and invest money.
We should be investing in those. So, sir, before the last question on COVID, before we move on to your journey as an entrepreneur, I think a lot of questions are around older people. Is there, I mean, they appear to be at higher risk. So, is there anything they can do, or they should stop going out, or there is special care they need to take? People above 60, 70 years of age in India.
I think Boris Johnson coming out of ICCU and then today again sitting back again in Prime Minister's chair is one motivation for people to understand the age of 55 is not a true problem. But having said that, there are stories where people 80 and 90 have made a very successful comeback. So that is also motivating. Having said that, the immunity is something which is not in our hand. And if somebody has a poor immunity, with COVID or without COVID, they will suffer.
We need to take precautions. Yes.
Yes. And COVID is one of the infections. There are many other infections, and the people die because of infections in low immunity. So it is not anything suddenly new. Only thing is, along with the dozen potential low immunity attacking guys, COVID will lead the team,
right,
which means it will only add to the kind of distress the old and less immune people will undergo.
Right, sir. Thank you for that. We moving on to your journey as an entrepreneur. So, what is the single? One of the gentlemen asked that. What is your single biggest trait which made you successful so far in the last 25 years? What is that one trait which has helped you succeed?
I think if I have to answer, I will ask that gentleman, what is the single organ in his body he values the most? So it is heart is important, lungs are important, kidneys are important, liver is important. And if you take it, there are 5, 6 which are without which you can't. One fails, the life is gone. Brain fails, the life is gone. So I also see a few things which were orchestrating my journey. And I think the first one is poverty. I think it's unfortunate that people celebrate money. People don't celebrate poverty. And, there are two kinds of people, one who suffer in poverty, another who enjoys the poverty. The one who suffers in poverty remains poor forever. The one who enjoys poverty becomes the richest on this earth. So I was fortunate to look at poverty as an opportunity because success in life is delta. Delta is equal to x2 minus x1, and x2 is where you are today. X1 was where you were that day, and my x1 was 0, and there is no downside for 0. And I am very, very happy that I could make a very impactful journey. So poverty plays a very big role. My talk is so impactful. Many parents feel very sad. How will I create an artificial poverty to children? Because paisa go chupa nahi sakta hai. But having said that, I had poverty, but my children did not have the poverty. But my children have been taught the value of money, value of hard work, everything, because me and my wife did not preach them, we practiced. And if you ask me, other than poverty, second is focus. My mother used to admire my focus because once I focus on something, then no one can even distract me by calling or asking or yelling. I become highly focused. And all those who are listening, I see some of the photographs with children also in some of the participants. Please make sure your children have focus. Now, if it's less, you improve on it. I will teach you 3 ways in which you can monitor the focus. If they keep back what they took in the same place after using it, that means they have focus. If they can put the toothpaste cap back after brushing their teeth, that means they have focus. If they can sit and write 15 pages without getting up from the chair, that means they have focus. And if they can take a newspaper and read from one end to another end for an hour without getting up, then that means they have focus. So, ladies and gentlemen, whoever is listening, please ensure that this ability of focusing is incorporated in the children very, very early. The third is the frugality. Frugality is a very, very wonderful word. I love to explain that also to people because people don't understand what is frugality. My mother never borrowed. She only reared two buffaloes and in 70 rupees revenue per week, she made sure all her children are Madras University graduates and Mumbai University postgraduates. Never borrowed. I think COVID has taught us. I think all of you who were sitting at home and working must be thinking, मेरा 50% खर्च कम हो ही गया. That means you guys were spending unnecessarily 50%, either unnecessary traveling or unnecessary partying or unnecessary everything. So I think frugality was one thing which I learned very early. And when I joined in BRC, Sarkar Naukri salary was too high for me to spend. So I kept on putting in my, not FD, even in the savings bank. And my wife was more frugal than I was. So we both have saved a lot of money. Frugality gave a closing balance. Closing balance gave a confidence to leave a government job. And subsequently in the company also frugality, we don't spend unnecessarily. Let me sum up what is frugality. If you spend because you enjoy it, that is frugality. And if you spend to impress your neighbor, that is stupidity. So that's one thing which I want all to keep in your mind. Find out what you are doing is only to impress the neighbor or it is going to give you true pleasure. If you get a true pleasure, please go for it. Life is to enjoy. Life is not to suffer. So I think I said about poverty. I said about focus. I said about frugality. And fortunate for me, my wife was a wonderful soul. She is no more. I lost her for a pancreatic cancer 5 years back. And she was a very, very sensible lady. And ever since she joined the journey in 1986, she lived with me for 30 years. We lived in the laboratory all along. And she didn't live for anyone else. She didn't have a life of her own. She reset her life after marriage, and for her, I was everything. She was a very highly matured, frugal lady. Took care of my employees, took care of my children, took care of my relatives. I am a man who will yell at everyone. She was the lady who was applying bomb for every pain. So I think that was a very rare combination of husband and wife. Both were very, chemistry wise, very, very unique and created a huge empire. And let me tell you, many of you must be listening to understand what way the spouse plays a role in success. I'm not talking about husband and wife, I'm talking about spouse. If the spouse trusts you, your energy is 10x. And if the spouse doubts you, questions you, the energy is 0.1x. So I must attribute that also as one more reason for my success. I will go one more step, very important step. I was a mathematics man. If you all have been good at mathematics, please enjoy. And if you are not, please go and read mathematics. You can't otherwise enjoy. Sir, how will I read mathematics now? Find out your son may be 5th or 6th standard. उसके साथ साथ mathematics पढ़ो. 10वीं तक उसके साथ mathematics पढ़ो. You have become powerful in mathematics. Why I say mathematics is most powerful means mathematics gives you costing. Costing gives you pricing. If costing is right, pricing is right. And if pricing is wrong, business is wrong. So I today believe that my mathematics sense made me very powerful. Can keep on adding a lot more, but then these are the primary 5 organs of my body that made me very powerful.
Thank you, sir. So that was nice. I think we have only 5-6 minutes. So last question on your business model. I think one of the panelists asked, one of the participants asked that You mentioned that you give the most to the customer and take the least from them in terms of, so how do you manage that in a business model? And how do you keep your margins high? What is that
Yeah,
success? And of course, partly you explained because of the mathematics, the costing thing, but how do you manage to do that?
I think I was the first guy in the healthcare industry to think about franchisee model, and that was not available. Only franchises were Indian franchises for international business. There were no Indian franchisee for Indian business. So this was in 1996, 97. I thought Madrasi cannot do business in Bathinda, cannot do in Jaunpur, cannot do it in Cuttack, cannot do it in Trivandrum. So sit here and appoint franchises. Local man, local culture, local language will help. And then, there is something which I didn't tell in the story of mine, which was needs time to tell. But now that you have asked, I will explain you. I was a PhD in thyroid biochemistry, and I earned this degree because I did a research on thyroid reagent make in India. This was as early as 1990. Those days, make in India was not the word. It was kind of later. So there I found out what reagents which we are importing for 100 rupees can be made in 20 rupees. So that research gave me an insight into the power of business in this. And I started disrupting the business. All others were buying at 100, selling at 500. I was making at 20 and selling at 100. My all competitors could not manage anything. So if you ask me, in spite of charging less, how can I afford to grow the business? It is only because the ratio wise, my balance sheet is better than their balance sheet because their purchase cost was too high. So in that way, subsequently, I am not manufacturing anything of my own. Government, the private multinational companies have given me better rate than what I can make on myself. Everybody was looting. The MNCs were looting. Today, if COVID testing is too costly, it is because MNCs are supplying at the reagent at 1500 rupees. It will come to 150 rupees soon. So I'm a man of mathematics. I know the costings. You know the costings, your pricing is in place. And let me also tell you the punchline. The profits never come from customer's pocket. It comes from the floor efficiency. So if you have got a good floor, efficient floor, my employees are wonderful. The automation I have invested is doing a great job of contribution in better bottom line. So a lot of things have gone in. It's in fact a very unique business model, which I am very happy that an organization which is fastest growing in this space. All my peers came much earlier. I came the last man into this industry, and all others have copied my business model. So I believe that this business model is very, very different, very, very unique only because I'm a mathematician. Had I been a medical doctor, I would have done what other medical doctor has done. And because I am an outsider, because a Madrasi is doing business, not Marwadi, not Gujarati, not Maharashtrian, I've done it different. And I am from village. I have seen all problem solving very early, too early when I was very young. So today, let me tell you for the parting punchline. Poverty means no resources you have to manage. Business means low resources you have to manage. And if I had managed in no resources, why should I struggle in low resources? So I have pretty well got it from the day I was born in that village. I am born to rule. And 60 years I have traveled in this pyramid of 10 slices of economy from bottommost slice to the topmost slice. Now that I have come to the topmost slice, in the topmost slice, I am seeing 10 more slices. So, so the journey is on.